right now, I'm going to cut open this rare fruit and nature journal it. Tried cutting into this thing a little bit and it's quite challenging, quite a hard shell. It's turning out a little bit messier than I was expecting, so I'm going to just dive into some of getting some information on my page before I get my hands completely covered in sticky juice. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create space here for a title. I'm just using this pale Tombow pin that might not show up on the camera at all, just to kind of get an idea of where I want that space to be for some of that composition. A little bit of a visual vocabulary can capture information on the page. This is already reminding me of something, so in that way I'm skipping straight to sort of what's it would be considered it reminds me of in nature journaling, which is drawing a connection to something that you already know or have something that you have already observed. So I'm going to write reminds me of passion fruit, which is really interesting because this is a very different family than passion fruit, but the fruit itself is similar in many ways. Okay, so now I'm going to get back into the dissection. I can always add I'll probably do all my watercolor at the end, but I really would like to get a cross section of this that I can draw. Is much more interesting, contains much more information than just drawing the outside of something like this. Wow, it's way more squash-like than I was expecting. A lot thicker, a lot denser, I should say, of flesh in here, but what a friggin' beautiful fruit right there. That is just amazing. Oh my gosh. Alright, this fruit is super distracting and amazing so far, but I'm going to try to focus on my pages. So one of the things I'm going to think about is the flow of information, and I want to have a flow kind of going this way. Now it'd be great and it would match really well with the flow and just make more sense to do sort of more life stages of this. So if I could see what it looked like when it's growing, that'd be great. I might have to do that as research afterwards, but I'm not going to get too distracted by that right now. What I want to do is draw the cross section probably of this whole fruit, and I'm going to think about what perspective I want that in. And should I just do one of them? I think for the space here it makes more sense to just do one of them. And I'm going to want to do some quantification in here pretty soon so I don't just get overly romantic with this sexy cucurbitaceae fruit, and actually get some sort of more hard data down in here. One thing too that can happen is if you are emotionally invested in your subject matter, it can make it the stakes higher on your drawing, and you might start to overly focus on the outcome instead of the process, and sometimes you can even get overly perfectionistic and kind of freeze up if you're working on a subject that you're emotionally attached to the outcome on. So that's a pretty common thing that happens when we try to draw people we know, for example. Especially their faces. Try doing that sometime, and what you'll notice is that it's very different from drawing a rock or an old tree. And a lot of people freeze up. So I'm trying not to freeze up on my loved one here, because it's such an amazing thing, and I'm really excited about it, but don't want that to negatively affect my nature journaling. If the drawing starts looking bad at any point, you can turn it into more of a diagram, remember? that takes a lot of pressure off. If you turned your loved one's face into a diagram, that would probably take some pressure off too, but they might not like that. A diagram is very different from portraiture. Now, if I could cut it this way, that'd be great too, but it's a really hard thing to cut. Like if I had a bandsaw, maybe I could cut it cleanly, but it'll be hard to get a clean cut that way. But I am interested in looking at how these segments are that go along with, that go radially to the shape of the fruit. I'm gonna try to show that here. Maybe I'll use gray to create a little bit more of a, I think I'm overthinking this, so I'm going a little bit slow. I'm being a little bit precious in my movements, which is not ideal. Dang. So if you start getting like that way, then what you should do is try to do some notes, turn it into more of a diagram. By jumping around a lot on the page and adding text, little descriptions, call out boxes, titles, things like that, I'm taking pressure off of the central illustration. This is not a botanical illustration. I'm not doing a fruit portrait. So I want to take that artistic pressure off of that central drawing and not get too worried about it. I need to speed this up. The flies are starting to come, and I barely just got my first wash down. It's really humid out, so it's drying kind of slow. And I could start working on the next page or including some more information about the tactile and gustatory aspects of this fruit, because so far it's almost all visual. I have some olfactory notes too. I think I might be able to put this next wash down here, just hopefully carefully. Color matching here with this kind of, oops. Oh shit, it's too early. Okay, I need to be patient with watercolor. I'm gonna try cutting it this way, see if I can at least get some information from this end of it. I'm gonna try a different knife actually too. This knife's not much better. It's also way more dangerous because it's not a locking blade. Definitely a lot like cutting open a squash or a pumpkin. You need to have probably just a heavy knife and kind of crack it. Either that or a saw. There we go. This is the information that I wanted though from this angle about these segments. I got some information down, dealt with some sort of paralysis around aesthetics, which can be a huge problem when you're trying to focus on nature journaling. And now I'm going to do a little bit of more tasting of the fruit and writing descriptive information about how it tastes. Some parts are really juicy and some parts are really sort of like thick and dry. I ate a few of the seeds, but don't want to really eat too many of those. Lots of seeds. Uneven juiciness, I would say. Uneven juiciness. Oh, I should measure this area that has more, that's more fleshy before the sort of other tissue starts, and I would say it's about 15, let's see, no, a little bit more than that, 15, 16, 17 millimeters of sort of wall. $17mm wall of denser flesh. More like squash, or some people would call that like cucurbita pepo, you know what I'm talking about. More like squash, C pepo. Pay attention to whenever tasting, oh, it just squirted me in the eye. Whenever tasting food in general, but fruit in particular, is the relationship between acid and sugar. There's gotta be a better way to eat this, but I think any way you do it, it's gonna be messy. I wonder if you can roast the seeds like you can squash. Some seeds are poisonous though, so you might not want to try that. The other thing is, whenever you're trying a new fruit, ideally don't eat a huge amount of it, because you never know how it's going to affect your body. So there's juice forming in here. This juice forming in here tastes a lot like melon juice, like cantaloupe juice or something. This fruit is from was domesticated in South America, whereas the melons are all from the old world. So this is kind of maybe like an equivalent, sort of like a New World equivalent of the melon. Yum 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 yum. So I just ate about a quarter of the fruit and tried to follow my own advice. Almost wanted to eat the whole thing, but when trying new fruit, it's good to start with a smaller amount. But I am starting to notice like a little bit of this like scratchy, burning sensation in the back of my throat. Uh-oh. I soon forgot about my burning throat as I dove into the creative challenge of matching this outer color. The outer color on the shell of this fruit was really interesting to try to match. I used naphthalide maroon, quinacridone sienna, and some of the permanent orange that I used for the flesh, all combined to make this color. Also tried matching the color of the seeds, and getting the sort of glossy, wet look is something I haven't mastered in watercolor yet. So I didn't really get that far into that part before my time was pretty much up. But I did come back, and based on some photos online on Wikipedia, I did add in what the flowers look like, what the leaves look like, and I learned a lot more about the ethnobotany of this plant, so how it is traditionally used. And one of the things I'm most proud about on this page is how I pushed through my perfectionism and included some of this information in a comic format. Do you believe, like I do, that nature journaling can make the world a better place? If so, check out my Patreon link above and become part of the community. Bye.